Welcome to Stuck, Time to Improv. I'm Mary Scott with BusinessRiff, and I want startups to be wildly successful. You have to have a good story to tell so people know who you are and what you stand for. And today we have Bridget K. Brown from StoryMatters talking about just that. Thanks for coming, Bridget.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Mary. It's an honor to be here.
So let's talk about story and why does it matter?
The longer I've been doing this, the more I understand how deep and ingrained story is into all phases of business. So it's an important thing that we have a sense of story and these people that I'm working with are so good at what they do. They understand that that's important, but it doesn't always mean that they can find the story that's there, especially when the detail is very grainy. And data tells a story, but you have to pick and choose the right data. Otherwise, everything is important. And you've heard it said that if everything is important, then
And nothing's
nothing.
important.
That's
So,
right.
and it's about telling enough story to get the Q&A happening.
Yes, it is. And um, it's important because if you don't engage, nobody's going to want the Q&A. If you
Exactly.
don't communicate, if you don't connect, nobody's going to want the Q&A.
So, what are some components that go into a good story, or what questions should one ask to create that good story?
When I work with entrepreneurs, the first thing I ask them is, what is your why? What is your why? Why are you doing this? Why this? You could work at a retail store, you could drive Uber, you could do so many different things, but you're doing this thing. Why this thing? And I always make sure that they understand that the answer to the question isn't about um, your time with your family, the amount of money you make. It's always about how you serve, right? So if your why really is honed in on how you serve, then you are able to tell the story of what you do in a way that the people who are looking for your service can find you. And so that's the place that we start. And if we're talking about storytelling for entrepreneurs that will help them to sell, we also try to mine what they've done in the past that has made them successful. If they are successful with what they do, and they apparently are because they decided to start their own business, then how do they frame that? I had a client who was passionate about the Jamaican food of her heritage. And I bring this up today because I saw a Jamaican food truck today and it reminded me of her. But what she was even more passionate about was community organization. And she thought, what if I combine the two? What if I take community organization and I bring into various communities Jamaican food? And so that became her business model. And so far, it's worked really well for her. But she was able to do that because she got down to that why. And then she was able to tell the story of what her business was because she had this long background in community service. And she had this passion for the Jamaican food that her mother and her grandmother cooked.
Sounds really interesting. I remember somebody once saying that you don't just ask why once. It's
Yes.
it's why, and then you get an answer, and then why that, and then you get another answer, and why that, until you get down to the really nitty-gritty part.
Yeah, there's a couple of different ways to do it. That's the five whys. That's a great exercise for people to do. Often I will have people do a brainstorming exercise where they put like 3 minutes timer on their phone and they take post-its. I'm a post-it queen. I love post-its. I think post-its are the best invention for brainstorming that ever happened in the history of the world. And I encourage them to write down as many whys as they possibly can access. And usually what that does is it allows the brain to tap into the passion that's there that made them want to start their business to begin with. But I will always caution them that as they go into their entrepreneurship deeper and deeper, their whys may change over time, and to always come back to it. So if they decide they're going to tell a new story, they're going to create a new keynote speech, they're going to put new copy on their web page, then get back in touch with that why, see if it's still there.
Okay. How long should your story be?
Well, that's really hard to say because you have to qualify what the story is, right? It's like saying I'm writing for a sitcom, so how long will it should be? Well, the length of a sitcom. If you're doing a keynote speech, somebody could hire you to do a keynote speech that's 45 minutes. They may want it for 15. So
Well,
it,
was thinking mostly in terms of the startups that we're talking with. And most of the time when they're telling their story, it's part of a pitch deck. It's
yeah,
part of a pitch to investors or to potential clients. And given that context,
then in that particular case, it's got to be more of an elevator speech. And one of my mentors used to say, think of an elevator speech as you got on at the 45th floor and the CEO of the company got on at floor 40. And you have 40 floors between floor 40 and the lobby to get across your idea, your new project, your thing that you want to pitch. I find that one of the um, shortcuts with doing that is to start with a question. So I call this a networking speech or an elevator speech, less of a pitch, but a speech. And it would be something like, hey, Mary, have you ever been to a conference where you forgot what the keynote speaker said 2 minutes after they left the stage? And you answer yes or no. And it doesn't matter what you say, actually. And then you say, well, I solved that problem. This is what I do, right? And the reason for that is because it intrigues the person. They lean in when you ask a question. And back when I was starting my business, I used to go out to these networking events, and I found that I'd walk into this one networking event month after month, and people would remember me. I couldn't remember who they were, full disclosure, but they would remember me. Why? Because I would always introduce myself that way. But they would introduce themselves as I'm a project manager. Well, that doesn't really explain, who you are. Or maybe see if you can find a way of describing what you do that doesn't go to the title of the job. So I've been called by more than one person the geek translator. And that's because part of my spidiness, part of my superpowers is I'm able to listen to very um, dense content that I don't necessarily have an expertise in, often from data scientists, engineers, project managers, people in science and STEM in general. And I can help them to boil down what it is that they need to say in a way that any audience can understand it.
that is a superpower. And unfortunately, we don't have a whole lot of time. So I
Okay,
want to thank you so much for coming, Bridget K. Brown
thank
from
you.
Story Matters. And we'll put links in the comments for people to contact you and to find out more stories and maybe how you can help them get their stories straight.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Mary. Great to see you.
Sure. And this is Mary Scott with BusinessRiff. I want startups to be wildly successful. One of the best things you can do to accomplish that is book a call with me and let's see how we can collaborate. And join us again next time for Stuck, Time to Improv.